Good afternoon. Calling today's CPC committee hearing to order. Today is Thursday, April 21st at 2 p.m. We are in conference room 423 and online. Welcome to those who are here in person and to those who are on Zoom. Just a couple of reminders before we get started on our last committee hearing for this session for CPC. As always, if you can just make sure that on Zoom, your name matches that of what you submitted on your testimony. If you can also keep yourself on mute so that we can make sure to minimize any noise. And for those who are here in person, if you can use the podium so that everyone who is on Zoom can hear you and your testimony. And then also to just make sure that we all just share aloha with each other as well. And there is a 2-minute time limit, although everyone has been great about keeping their testimony within that time frame. So we'll get started on today's agenda. The first item on today's agenda is SCR 2 SD1. This is requesting the auditor to conduct the sunrise review of the certification and regulation of community health workers. First up to testify, we have the Department of Commerce and Consumer Affairs, Alani Kiyoki, in support.
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you. Alani Kiyoki, Licensing Administrator for the Professional and Vocational Licensing Division. I will stand on my written testimony in support. Thank you.
Thank you, Alani. Next, we have the Department of Health testifying in support.
Thank you, Chair and Vice Chair. I'm Lola Irvin, representing Director Libby Char for the Department of Health, and the Department of Health stands on its testimony in support. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we have the Hawaii Public Health Institute, Rosalind Handy, in support.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Rosalind Handy, representing Hawaii Public Health Institute in support of SCR 2SD1. At this time, we do stand on a written testimony in support and just want to thank you all for your time and the opportunity to testify. Mahalo.
Thank you, Rosalind. Next, we have Kula Nona Po'e Hawaii o Papa Kolea Kevalo Kalavahine, Adrian Dillard, in support. We also have individual testimony from Gracie Flores in support, Crystal Kade Bargayo in support, and late testimony from the Hawaii CHW Association in support. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on this measure? Seeing none, committee members, any questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to our next agenda item, which is SCR 241 SD2. This is requesting the auditor to assess the social and financial effects of mandatory health insurance coverage for fertility preservation procedures for certain persons who have been diagnosed with cancer and whose cancer or cancer treatment may adversely affect their fertility. First up to testify, we have the Association of Clinical Oncology, Sarah Lanford, in support. Oh, they may not be here. They didn't indicate they were going to be here, but we do have individual testimony in support from Blake Oshiro.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair, Chair, members of the committee. Blake Oshiro on behalf of the Hawaii Society of Clinical Oncology. We stand on our written testimony in support, and I'll be available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Blake. Next, we have late testimony from the Alliance for Fertility Preservation, Joyce Renicky, in support. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on this measure? Okay, seeing none, committee members, any questions? No. Okay, next up on our agenda, we have SCR 33 SD1. This is requesting the Blood Bank of Hawaii to immediately adopt the Food and Drug Administration's updated guidance, which shortens or eliminates the deferral period for certain blood donors. On testimony, we have late testimony in support from Scott Fuji, as well as late testimony in opposition from Gerard Silva. Is there anyone here wishing to testify on this measure? Okay, seeing none, and since there's no one to ask questions to, committee members, we're going to move on to the next item. SCR 41 SD1. This is requesting the Hawaii Broadband and Digital Equity Office to conduct a data mapping study to identify geographically underserved and unserved areas in the state that lack quality broadband connectivity. First up to testify, we have Debed Bert Lum in support.
Aloha, Vice Chair, Chair, members of the committee, Bert Lum, Broadband Strategy Officer here in the Hawaii Broadband and Digital Equity Office. I stand on our written testimony in support. I do bring up the fact that this would be also necessary in order to achieve what is stated in the resolution, some resources in the form of some money to actually get the job done. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention and am available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Bert. That's all we have for testimony on this measure. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify on SCR 41? Okay, seeing none, committee members, any questions for Bert Lum? Nope. Okay, moving on to our next agenda item, SCR 20 SD1. This is urging the Public Utilities Commission to consider and adopt an efficient, streamlined process to review requests made by electric utilities to provide middle-mile broadband services in furtherance of the state's efforts to expedite broadband access to unserved and underserved areas. First up to testify, we have DCCA Dean Nishina offering comments.
Aloha, Vice Chair Kitagawa, Chair, Johansson, and members of the committee. Dean Nishina with the Division of Consumer Advocacy. We stand on our written testimony offering comments, but I am available for questions if you have any. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dean. We also have the Hawaii Public Utilities Commission, Jay Griffin, offering comments. We also have Hawaiian Electric offering support, Christian Whitney.
Aloha, Christian Whitney here. For whatever reason, my camera's not working. I'm smiling and waving at you, but I'm here with Hawaiian Electric and I stand on my written testimony in support and I'm available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Christian. Next, we have the University of Hawaii, Garrett Yoshimi in support. We also have Ocean Network Inc., Cliff Miyake in support.
Aloha, Vice Chair, Chair, and members of the committee. Cliff Miyake for Ocean Networks. We stand on our written testimony in support and happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Cliff. Next, we have Hawaiian Telecom, Janine Suki with comments.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee, Janine Suki on behalf of Hawaiian Telecom. We're going to stand on our written comments requesting amendments to this resolution. Thank you.
Thanks, Janine, and thanks for being here. Next up, we also have Sandy Wong in support.
Yes, I'm here, Vice Chair. Good afternoon. I'll stand on my written testimony in support.
Okay. Thank you, Sandy. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on SCR 120? No? Okay, committee members, any questions on this measure? No? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move to our last measure on the agenda, SCR 103 SD1 HD1. This is requesting the Hawaii State Energy Office to convene a working group to examine issues and barriers to the installation of electric vehicle charging systems in multi-unit dwellings and make recommendations regarding changes to statutes and rules or other guidance to help clarify and facilitate the installation of electric vehicle charging systems in multi-unit dwellings. First up to testify, we have DCCA Dean Nishina offering comments.
Aloha again, Vice Chair, Chair, members of the committee. Stand on our written testimony offering comments, but I am available for questions if you have any. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dean. Next, we have the Hawaii Public Utilities Commission, Jay Griffin offering comments. We also have the Hawaii State Energy Office, Scott Glenn in support. Not present, okay. Next, we have the Hawaii Council for Association of Apartment Owners, Jane Sugimura in support. Not present? Not present. We have Ulupono Initiative, Micah Munekata in support. We have Naya Michael Iosua with comments.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair, committee members. You have a written comments just suggesting that a member of the development community be admitted as part of the working group. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Next, we have the Hawaii EV Association, Noel Morin in support. 350 Hawaii, Sherry Polak in support. We have Tesla, Sandy Wong in support.
Yes, Vice Chair, Sandy Wong again, here on behalf of Tesla for this measure. We support this measure and we would ask that we be a member of the working group. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. Next, we have Hawaiian Electric, June Chi in support.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair, Chair, and committee members. June Chi on behalf of Hawaiian Electric, and we submitted written testimony in support of this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, June. We have the Alliance for Automotive Innovation, Tiffany Yajima, in support.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, Tiffany Yajima for the Alliance for Automotive Innovation. We stand on our written testimony supporting the intent of this measure, and we note that the automakers are ready and willing to support the Energy Office in this working group as a participant. Thank you.
Thank you. We also have supportive testimony from Climate Protectors Hawaii, Ted Boland, as well as individual on-time supportive testimony from Steve Parsons, Ron Riley, Diane Ware, Paul Bernstein, Nanette Vinton, as well as late supportive testimony from Envoy Hawaii, Jason Burks, Hawaii Auto Dealers Association, Dave Rolfe, as well as individual supportive testimony from John Kawamoto, Sho Ienaga, Matthew Geiser, and one opposition testimony from Gerard Silva. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify on this measure? Seeing none, committee members, any questions? No questions. Okay, we're going to recess for decision making. Recess. Reconvening today's CPC hearing for decision-making. First up on our agenda is SCR 2 SD1. This is relating to community health workers. The recommendation is to pass as is. Committee members, any comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, chair for the vote, please.
Okay, the recommendation is to pass SCR 2 unamended. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Representative Aquino. Aye. Representative Har is excused. Representative Hashem. Aye. Representative Kong. Aye. Representative Mizuno is excused. Representative Morikawa is excused. Representative Onishi is excused. Representative Tarnas.
Aye.
Thank you. And Representative Matsumoto.
Aye.
Chair, your measure is adopted.
Great, thank you so much. Next up is SCR 241 SD1 relating to health insurance for fertility preservation. The recommendation is to pass as is. Committee members, any comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, chair for the vote, please.
Okay, the recommendation on SCR 241 is to pass unamended, noting the excused absences of Representatives Har, Mizuno, Morikawa, and Onishi, who will be noted as excused for the remaining votes. Are there any reservations? Are there any no's? Okay, thank you, Chair. Your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Next up is SCR 33 SD1 relating to the Blood Bank of Hawaii. The recommendation is to pass as is. Any comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, chair for the vote, please.
The recommendation on SCR 33 is to pass unamended, noting the previously noted excused absences. Are there any reservations? Are there any no's? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Next up is SCR 41 SD1 relating to data mapping for broadband connectivity. The recommendation is to pass with amendments. First, we'll be removing the fifth be it further resolved clause, which is on page 2, starting on line 40 through page 3 up until line 2, since it is requesting that DBED allocate money to this project. So expenditures need to be made pursuant to a bill, which then becomes a law. And since this resolution will not become law, it cannot legally authorize DBED to fund or contract for services. So we're going to remove that clause. We'll also be making technical amendments needed for clarity, consistency, and style. Any comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, chair for the vote, please.
Okay, the recommendation on SCR 41 is to pass with amendments, noting the previously noted excused absences. Are there any reservations? Are there any no's? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Next up, SCR 120 SD1 relating to middle mile broadband services. The recommendation is to pass with amendments. First off, we'll be amending the title to more accurately reflect the be it resolved clause, which is a little bit longer than what the title is. We'll also be taking the amendments offered by Hawaiian Telecom, which is on page 2, lines 4 through 8, and will now read as follows. Whereas the National Association of Regulatory Utility Commissioners issued a resolution on November 9, 2021 that supports electric utilities providing service in unserved and underserved areas to quickly close the broadband availability gap. The committee would also like to make a note in the committee report that it shares the comments offered by DCCA, which encourages the PUC to revisit their affiliate transaction requirement rule and guidelines to ensure that cross-subsidization does not occur for broadband activity. Any comments or questions, committee members? Okay, seeing none, chair for the vote, please.
Okay, the recommendation on SCR 120 is to pass with amendments. Are there any reservations? Are there any no's? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, last up on our agenda is SCR 103. This is requesting relating to working group for electric vehicle charging systems in multi-unit dwellings. The recommendation is to pass with amendment. So we'll be taking one of the recommendations from NIAP Hawaii, which will include a representative from NIAP Hawaii chapter as a member of the working group, since they represent both developers and affordable housing developers, and is important to the conversation for multi-unit dwelling electrification. Comments or questions from the committee? Okay, seeing none, chair for the vote.
The recommendation on SCR 103 is to pass with amendments. Are there any reservations? Are there any no's? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, and thank you, committee members, for this great session in CPC. Today is our last hearing, so today's agenda is adjourned.